Thank you. Thanks a lot. I'm going to play that applause to myself over and over again, saying what a noble creature I am. But thanks a lot. I appreciate it. Okay, we've got just a little while to go here, and we'll be finished with the 2 days. The rest of it now is right, put it into action, see if we can't use it to fine-tune some of the situations in our life and our future development of all parts of our life. That's what this 2 day is really for. A reminding session of where we are and what the principles and basic philosophies are, and then learning from someone's experience just to fine-tune your own experience. And what you do with these 2 days, of course, that's up to you. And I respect you for whatever you do with these 2 days of sort of intellectual stir to get everybody to ponder and think and pay attention just a little bit in a concentrated way to how to take these ideas and translate it into progress, because that's really what we want. Okay, we finished our goals workshop. We got 2 major subjects now to cover in this relatively short period of time. Here's the first one: how to become financially independent. Living in America, of course, it's everybody's heritage to become financially independent. Now, it's fairly easy if you start at age 15 to become financially independent by age 35. How many years between 15 and 35? 20. So make the note, 20 years in America is enough time to become financially independent. Now, we can use all kinds of terms: getting rich, becoming wealthy. Sometimes rich and wealthy is a little bit heavy, where someone might say, I don't need to be rich. But, rich is always in each person's concept of rich. It used to be a long time ago, rich was being a millionaire, but, a millionaire, $1 million is not that much anymore. So everything is relative. But someone says, well, I don't want to think of myself as trying to get rich. So, there's other language we can use from a variety of semantics. We can choose what's more comfortable. Becoming wealthy. The term wealthy in everybody's mind is probably a little different of what the amount is or what the accumulation is. So that's interesting. Rich or wealthy. But here's one concept I think everybody can comprehend, even the kids, and that's to someday be financially independent. So now let me give you my definition of financial independence. My definition is the ability to live from the income of your personal resources. The ability to live from the income of your personal resources. Meaning, at that point, you wouldn't have to work, that is, to make a living, or work to earn money, because now you have enough income from your personal resources. You would then simply work for accomplishment, you would work for pleasure, you would work for joy, you would work for whatever. But from that point on, once you became financially independent, you wouldn't have to work anymore in terms of supporting yourself, in terms of like making a living. So that is a heritage for all Americans, that you can become someday financially independent and live from the income of your personal resources. Now, here's the next question. How do you wish to live? There's a difference between modestly and extravagantly. If you wish to live extravagantly from the income of your personal resources, you'd have to have a lot more personal resource. But if you wanted to live modestly, and if that life would suit you, modest in terms of what it would require to, support your daily living. If that was fairly modest, not the ambition of your goals, but modest in terms of the money you would require to live comfortably, it doesn't take that much personal resources. I mean, it doesn't take $100 million, it doesn't take $50 million, it doesn't take multiplying $1 million, let's say at 12%, it's $120,000 a year. You could live fairly well on $120,000 a year, even after paying taxes. But it depends on how you wish to live. It depends on your own personal lifestyle. Now, if you need a mansion in every major city in the world, it's going to take more personal resources, right? If you need a jet and a chauffeur and a limousine and, this whole concept. But to be free of anybody to have financial claim on you and to be free to live, in a fairly easy manner, all you need is a certain amount of personal resources to be able to live from the income of those resources. Here's what we call that, whatever those dimensions are: financial independence. Now, here's one more exciting thing. We talked about it a little bit earlier. Beyond that to be exciting, and that is debt-free, to where no one has a claim on your personal resources. And these are all interesting concepts. So let's go down through a list of, things to jog our memory here. We talked about this earlier. Economics is major. Putting together your economic plan. My mentor asked me for my financial plan when I was 25. Of course, I didn't have one. Just like a list of goals I didn't have. But a financial plan. Now, here's what's important. My mentor said it's not the amount that counts, it's the plan that counts. Because I offered him the excuse. I said, if I had more money, I'd have a better plan. He said, no, if you had a better plan, you'd have more money. I'd been working 6 years. And once in a while now, the creditors were calling. See, after 6 years, he suggested to me after 6 years of economic activity, I should be at least 1/3 of the way to building a financial wall around my family nothing could get through. And how far away was I from being 1/3 of the way? Like 1,000,000 miles. And he said, here's why you're where you are. Not because you haven't earned money, but because you haven't got a good plan. And the key is to not just live in the right country, but to have the right plan. So it's the plan that counts. Now here's what you do. You start with some plan and then refine it as you go. Or you refine it as your needs require. Or you refine it as your dreams require. Some people need to make millions. Why? In order to satisfy their dreams. And some of those dreams can be benevolence. Mark Hughes of Herbalife, right, is going to do what, $2 billion this year in sales? But I met him when he was 19, came to my seminar when he was 19. When he was a kid, he got hooked on drugs and managed to escape. At age 18, his mother died from a drug overdose. She was 36. When he was a teenager, he was so committed to helping other kids escape the drug habit that he became a fundraiser, and he became one of the best in the country. As a teenager, because he had escaped drugs, now he wanted to help other kids escape drugs. And he became one of the best. Guess who one of his participants was? Ronald Reagan. He's around knocking on doors. And he said, hey, I might as well go to the rich area. And one of his large contributors to his program back when he was a kid was Ronald Reagan. Right? Unique story yet to be told. Now, of course, Mark has become extremely wealthy. He's building a $45 million home in Beverly Hills, which is fairly wealthy. But here's his big ambition, far more than the $45 million home, is, year before last, he gave $8 million to a program called DARE, helping kids with drug problems. It's his passion to make more millions and more millions, so he'll have more millions to give to these projects. See, it just depends on what you want, how you want your life to unfold. But now, financial independence, being able to live from the income of your personal resources, that's a goal everybody should set. Now, if you're a little late coming to this plan, you might have to, do a little more stretching than the average person would. But starting at age 15, it's easy to pencil out where with a normal average income and the increases every year to be financially independent by age 35, 40 at the latest if you have a good plan. Now, the reason why the money all disappears is not because it doesn't exist. It's because the money isn't put in the right plan. So now let's talk about a few other things. One is some people have to wrestle with, and I had a few questions on, is it okay to strive to be rich? Is it okay to want to be wealthy? Is it okay to go for it? I had to come to grips with that. Some people say, well, it'd be better to renounce all worldly goods and just live a very poverty, spiritual life. And that's one concept. I've got another concept. Try this on for size. If you could do better, should you? That's an interesting concept to consider. Why would you leave the biggest share of your life unexplored in terms of personal development and what that might have achieved, either in the marketplace or at home as a father? Someone says, well, I'm not going for being rich. I don't think that's really the healthy thing to do. So everybody has to wrestle with that, and I understand that. But I think one conclusion we could come to, with a good, simple, practical plan, there's no reason why you can't accumulate the resources to be financially independent. So now let's talk about it. Here's how Schoaf introduced me to the concept. One is to develop a current financial statement. Now this is primarily going to be a current financial statement of your finances, your money. Now money is not the only value. But make this note, it is one value. It's not the only one, but it is one. Money is not the only measure of success, but it is one measure. It's not the only one, but it is one. We learned in the little ladder we drew yesterday that your current income is a measure of your personal value to the marketplace. If your current value to the marketplace is $5 an hour, you get the $5. So, not that a person is only worth $5, but their value to the marketplace is only worth $5. But it's possible to very quickly change those numbers by changing your value. But the numbers do illustrate the value. We cannot leave that concept out. So somebody says, you mean where I am financially is an illustration of who I am? And the answer is yes. Now, it's not the only measure. I'm not saying it's the only one, but I'm saying it is one. There's a lot of other ways to measure a person's value as a father, a person's value as a mother, a person's value as a friend, as a colleague, of course. But we can't leave the money out. Now, here's why money is an easy measure. It's easy to count. Say, how are you doing? Well, there's a lot of, things we could throw out there about how you're doing. And when we say financially, that's easy. Let's count. Say, wow. So let's face the count. So my mentor said, let's come up with a financial statement. I said back then, what is a financial statement? I didn't know. So here's what he said. You take a piece of paper, draw a line down the center. Over here, you list all of your assets. Everything you can think of that you have that's got value. And then we add this up, the total. Whatever you've got. Your bicycle, whatever you got, put it on here, we'll put some value on it. That's the total of your assets. Now over here's your liabilities, here's what you owe. And you make this list. So I started putting this together. I said, well, if I do this, it's not going to look that good. He says, it doesn't matter how it looks. It matters whether or not you do it. He said, let's take a picture of where you are currently. As bad as it may be, or as good as it may be, let's take a picture. After 6 years, click. And these are called what? The facts. You can, throw around all the ethereal value. What about the value of being a mother? We're not going to go through that now. We're just talking about money, the facts on the money. So I thought, well, okay. He said, you don't have to publish this in the paper. This is just for you. So I started putting my liabilities, my parents that I'd borrowed money from, budget finance, the whole bit. And wow. Now assets. Now I am embarrassed. I even put my shoes on here. Salvation Army give you what? $4 for your shoes. Can you imagine the trauma I went through now, putting together my first financial statement after 6 years? And he said, if you would have taken this picture much earlier, you probably would have done something about it. So this is what you must affirm now. This is the truth. This is where you are. This is not everything in your life, but this is where you are financially. So then he said, we subtract assets, liabilities from assets, and we come up with current net worth. Now, it's not your total net worth now, I keep emphasizing. It's your net worth financially. And you can imagine my picture did not look very good. Now, here's what he said. Let's start changing this picture. And the change you want in the picture is what? For the asset values to start going up and these numbers to start coming down. And that starts increasing your net worth. Guess how quickly you can do this? Almost immediately. One is to quickly think of something that you didn't think of to put in the asset columns. Let me explore my closet. Let me find something here with a little more value, make me look a little better. Whatever that is. Now, on the liability side, then we start working these numbers down. And he said, you cannot believe the excitement of almost daily changing your net worth. Daily changing your net worth. Every time you pay off one of your bills, you just do this. And you just get great excitement in paying your bills. And here's what I told him. I said, I hate to pay my bills. He said, why would you hate to do that? It decreases your liabilities. And I never thought about loving to pay my bills. He said, no, you got to get excited about paying your bills. And you got to practice something like this. The next time you pay $100 on an account, you put a little note in there and say, with great delight, I send you this $100. Because my assets are going up and my liabilities are going down. I'm on a new track. I'm never going the old way again. Somebody says, will $100 do that? And the answer is yes. So that you can begin to practice not only the new method, but the new attitude. Not just the new method, but the new attitude. And when you combine both the method and the attitude, you can get some incredible results. Number one, your self-esteem starts to go like this. It's unbelievable charting all this course. You've got to do this now. Put together your own current net worth, whatever the picture is. Don't need to show it to anybody. It's just for you and your information. Now let's come to what I teach kids. I'm trying to get this book written. Of course, kids should pay taxes. And in it is going to be this little philosophy here on money management. What should a child do with $1? Here's one comment. What difference does it make? It's only a child and it's only $1. Only a child and only $1? Where do you suppose someone's financial journey begins? A child with $1. That's where it starts. Now, what road is this child with $1 going to go down? It all depends. It depends on what they've been taught. It depends on what they've been taught, the disciplines of developing a plan for the future. It all depends which road this child chooses. And one of the great illustrations of choosing the wrong road is doing the wrong things with the early resources. So what difference does it make? Well, what if this child spends the whole $1? Let me give you a clue. That is the wrong road. You say, well, it's only a child and it's only $1. No. And if a child has $1, however he earned it, however he got it, you've got to say to the child, now don't spend the whole $1. They'll say, why not? It's my $1. I said, I know it's your $1. I earned it. I know you earned it, but you can't spend the whole $1. They'll say, why not? That opens the door for you to say, let me show you why not. Now underline this word, visual. Kids learn best by visual. So you take them to the other side of town and show them where people live that spend the whole $1. And you just drive them around and say, would you like to live here? Kid says, no. Say, would you like to live like these people live? Kid says, no. Then you can't spend the whole $1. I'm telling you, they will get the message. It only takes one visit. It's like crime. They had that little movie for a while called Scared Straight. Remember that? Way back, quite a few years ago, where they filmed the kids that went to the jail and talked to the man. And guess what the man said to the kid? You don't want to come here. Let me show you around. If you can't do the time, don't do the crime. And some of these kids came out of the jail after talking to the men saying, here's one place we don't want to go. So visual, actual visual, is one of the best ways to help to illustrate kids. So take them to the other side of town. Now, if you already live there, just show them around. Just Because now this would be a good time for confession. Guess why we live on this side of town? Where did the money go? One father says, to be honest, I smoked a great deal of it. A lot of the money over the last 20 years went up in smoke. Good time for confession. Don't do what I did and wind up on this side of town. Let me show you a plan, my son, how to get to the other side of town. See, there's nothing better than the truth. You don't need to fool with the truth. It is so dynamic in uncovering the errors of our ways and helping us to set up new disciplines to change it all, starting today, starting overnight, starting any time. Now, you could wait to start a plan for a couple of years, but why not do it now? So what should a child do with $1? Here's what I teach. Let's go through this quickly. Never spend more than 70 cents. Somebody says, why? Well, to make it easy, just take my word for it, right? You just don't spend more than 70 cents. You got to pick some number. When I met Shof on every dollar, I was spending about 110%. And here's what I learned. If your outgo exceeds your income, your upkeep becomes your downfall. I found that back then it was easy to make $4,000 a month and go broke. Somebody says, how could you make $4,000 a month and go broke? It's easy. Spend $5,000. And if you spend $5,000, it's what? Inevitable. That's a good word, inevitable. Sometimes it's inevitable. If you're in a little boat with no motor and no oars, 300 feet from Niagara Falls, it's over. It's already done. You just don't want to find yourself there in such a predicament. It's what we call inevitable, right? It's done, it's over. So, 70 cents. Pretty good number, especially for a child. Don't spend more than 70 cents out of each dollar. They say, okay, I got that now. What do I do with the other 30 cents? I'm glad you asked. Here's what you do. 10 cents for charity. Helping people who can't help themselves, supporting worthy causes. Some church teach tithe, portion of, piece of, which is good. They say, give us the 10% and we'll administer it, but you got to take the tour now. Don't give the 10% unless you take the tour and let them show you where it goes. Then if you're happy and delighted with them administrating it and where it goes, then you give the 10%. Or you could administer the 10% yourself. You know, whatever your philosophy is on this. The time to teach kids generosity is early. And if you teach kids to share 10 cents out of every dollar, and it starts early, I'm telling you, they'll do it forever. And 10 cents is kind of easy to give out of $1. If you got $1 million, it's a little more difficult to give 100,000. Someone says, oh, if I had $1 million, I'd give 100,000. I'm not that sure. We better start you early so that when the big money starts to roll, the system will already be in place. So 10 cents for charity. Now, here's another 10 cents called active capital, meaning put your money to work. Capitalism. And kids can learn to buy and sell. My old illustration way back on the old tapes was buy a bottle of soap for $2 and sell it for $3. Who can do that? Any kid can do that. Go next door and knock on the door. Ms. Jones, my mama uses this soap. I think you'll find it real interesting. It's only $3 a bottle. She says, well, Johnny, I've already got plenty of soap. He says, you better let me come in and check. Kids don't need a class on sales. They're born to sell. Better let me come in and check. Now, when a child collects $3 and sells this bottle of soap, what should they do? You got to teach them not to spend the whole $3. See, some adults don't know that. Kid says, well, yeah, if you spent the whole $3, you'd be out of business. That's right. You got to save back the $2. You've only got $1 now. The $2 have got to go get you another bottle of soap. So it's easy to teach these little principles. Profits are better than wages. Wages make you a living. Profits make you a fortune. This is what I taught in Russia, in Moscow, to 8,000 the first class. Incredible. Active capital means buy, sell, or sell, buy. It depends on your circumstances. If you have to sell, buy, you sell, buy. If you can do it, then you buy, sell. Or whatever way to, earn a profit. I teach kids right. 2 bicycles. Got to have 2 bicycles, one to ride and one to rent. anything to generate a profit, render a service, whatever it is, something simple and easy. But kids will come up with all kinds of ideas. All you got to do is get them started, how to make a profit. They know this deal. Active capital means you are involved. Now, here's the last 10 cents called passive capital, meaning let someone else use your money. Let a financial institution use your money. Some projects require more money than one person can put up. So we have what we call collective pools of money, where you put up some, I put up some, someone else put up some, and we loan it out. And here's what they pay us for using our money. They pay us interest and dividends and increase in stock value. This is the potential here. Putting up your money. But now, if you follow this starting at age 15 and allocate the dollar this way, rather than having no plan at all, it's easy to become financially independent by the time you're 35, at the latest 40, allowing for some unforeseen circumstances. Now, why wouldn't a kid go for that? I'm telling you, here's the only reason they wouldn't go for it. They never heard about it. If you teach kids the splendid joy of being rich, if you teach kids the unbelievable power of being financially independent, if you teach them the unbelievable feeling of being capable, of having skills, of having influence, of being somebody, they'll go for it. They will go for it. Now, if they don't go for that, they're going to substitute it with something else. Something else we really don't care for. Some other kind of high, rather than earning money, rather than being responsible, rather than the joy of giving service, rather than all these joys. They're probably going to go for something else. So we've got to keep their minds busy with stuff like this. Figure out ways to get this money out there so that it earns you this. And find out some ways to start earning profits yourself. Now, you might not be able to start here 70, 10, 10, and 10. We're talking about kids now that, haven't got all these other liabilities and responsibilities. Maybe I've caught you at an unfortunate time, and for you to start this kind of a plan, you'd have to make this 70 probably 97%. And these what? 1, 1, and 1. And if that's where you have to start, that's okay, as long as you start with a better plan than you had yesterday. Now what's the goal? If you have to start at 97, 1, 1, and 1, the goal is for this number to start coming down and these numbers to start going up. And if you just start the plan, you'll see such progress almost immediately. The numbers that need to come down will start coming down. The others that need to go up will start going up. You'll start figuring out a way to make this whole thing work. It's unbelievable. This is now what I call the ideal. But sometimes you can't start at the ideal. You have to start somewhere and work toward the ideal. Now, once you start doing extremely well, you got to change this model. Right? Some of the guys I know couldn't spend 70% of their income. That would be obscene. I probably spend what? I probably spend less than 10% of my income. So if this number for me has gone way, 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 way down, you can imagine these numbers have gone way, 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 way up. And you can't believe the thrill of watching your plan unfold. One, to start in a pretty tough position and get to the ideal, and then get to what we call the max, the summit kind of living, the view from the top, by finally arriving here, and then little by little arriving here to where this number comes down, down, down. This number goes way, way, way up, and these numbers go up, up, up. Now you've got resources to do all kinds of things, whatever you wish to do. This is what we call having a financial plan. Now, all I want to do is stimulate you with this plan. You can develop your own. You can change all these numbers. You can do whatever you want. Here's what I advise. You got to have a plan. Okay. Some of the notes I taught in Russia on capitalism versus communism. Here's what capital is. The Russians did not understand this because they weren't taught. Here's what capital is. Capital is any value you set aside. And the easiest to identify is your money. Any value you set aside to be invested in an enterprise that brings value to the public with the hopes of making a profit. Any value you set aside to be invested in an enterprise that brings value to the public with the hopes of making a profit. Now, the reason why that was foreign to the Russians was because up until the fall of communism, making a profit was illegal. You couldn't go into business for yourself. You had to work for the all-knowing state. Everybody was employed by the state because the state owned all the resources. So you couldn't make a profit. Now, when I give this simple little analysis, the Russians go crazy. They said, well, we could have done that for the last 85 years. That's right. We could have built a dynamic society like America. That's right. But now you've got to start setting aside some value to be invested in an enterprise that you're responsible for bringing value to the marketplace with the hope of making a profit. That's called capitalism. Now, here's what else I told them. Here's what you can set aside that's more important than money. Let me give you the list. Now, this money that you set aside is like seed corn for the farmer. What would you do with seed corn? Number one, protect it with a vengeance. Here's what you wouldn't do with it. Spend it. Here's what you wouldn't do with it. Give it away. You can't do that with your capital. You cannot be benevolent with your capital. With your profits, yes. With your capital, no. This is seed corn. Here's what you wouldn't do with your seed corn. Eat it. Because now you've got no crop come harvest. So you wouldn't spend it and you wouldn't lose it. And you wouldn't give it away and you wouldn't eat it. It's to be set aside and protected because it's the investment for the future. So you set aside this money, not to be spent, not to be given away for benevolence, not to be lost, but to be kept for the time when you invest it in an enterprise that brings value to the marketplace with the hopes of making a profit. And this enterprise bringing value to the marketplace with the hope of making a profit is just as simple as a child that buys a bottle of soap for $2 and sells it for $3. He brings value to the marketplace by taking this $2 of capital and going next door to Mrs. Jones and selling her a bottle of soap for $3. Now he's got $3, but $2 is capital still set aside to invest in the next bottle. That is capitalism. But here's what's exciting. It's not all there is to capitalism. Let me give you the rest of the list. Here's the rest of the list. Time is more valuable than capital. Time you set aside, not to be eaten, not to be wasted, not to be given away. Time you set aside to be invested in an enterprise that brings value to the marketplace with the hope of making a profit. Now we have capital money and we have capital time. How valuable is time? Time properly invested is worth a fortune. Time wasted is worth devastation. But it's worth a fortune if you invest it properly. My time invested these 2 days, I'm telling you, it's worth a fortune, not just in coin, but in resources for me for the future. Who knows what may come spinning out of these 2 days? I got stories you wouldn't believe in my files. Time invested can perform miracles. So you invest your time. Now, let me tell you the rest of the list. Lydia Cologne invests $1 in her enterprise, selling a product she believed in. Here was her first investment, desperation. She says, my kids are hungry. I got to make this work. If this doesn't work, what will I do? That's called great incentive. My friend Bill Bailey went to Chicago as a teenager after he got out of high school. And the first job he got was night janitor. Someone says, Bill, why would you settle for night janitor? He said, malnutrition. Right? You work at whatever you can possibly get when you get hungry. Right? You go to work somewhere. Night janitor, don't matter where it is. Now he's rich and, he's financially independent, but first job, night janitor. So, what is a good investment? Desperation. I must. See, that's a powerful incentive. I must. Now, here's the next investment she made. Determination. I will. I will find someone. First, she said, I must find someone. Desperation. Second, she said, I will find someone before this first day is over. Sure enough, she found someone. And she said, if it works once, it'll work again. But the next person said no. Next person said no. Now what must you invest? Courage. Courage is more valuable than money. If you've only got $1 and a lot of courage, I'm telling you, you've got a good future ahead of you. Courage in spite of. Humans can do the most incredible things no matter what happens. Tell us about it. Haven't we heard the stories? There's probably some recent ones from Kosovo that we haven't even heard yet that are some of the most classic, unbelievable stories of being in the depths of hell and finally making it out. Humans, you can't sell humans short. Courage, in spite of, not because of, but in spite of. Now, once she's sold 3 or 4 and gotten going, here's what now takes over. Ambition. Wow, if I can sell 3, I can sell 33. If I can sell 33, I can sell 103. Wow, now she's now dazzled by her own dreams of the future. Try this one on for size, faith. Now she begins to believe, I've got a good product. This is probably a good company. And she then starts to believe in herself. Lydia, single mother, 2 kids, no job. My gosh, I'm going to pull it off. Her self-esteem starts to soar. These are investments that are unmatched. Money can't touch it. What if you had $1 million and no courage? You'd be poor. You wouldn't be rich. Now here's the next one. It's the reason why she's a millionaire today. Ingenuity. Putting your brains to work. Probably up until now, you've put about 1/10 of your brain power to work. What if you employed the other 9/10? You can't believe what can happen. Humans can come up with the most intriguing things to do. Ingenuity. What's ingenuity worth? A fortune. It's more valuable than money. All you need is $1 and plenty of ingenuity. Figuring out a way to make it work, make it work, make it work. Have a classic story to tell that'll stir the kids' minds for years to come. Next, heart and soul. I mean, what's a substitute for heart and soul? It ain't money. Money can't buy heart and soul. And heart and soul is more valuable than $1 million. $1 million without heart and soul, you have no life. You are ineffective. But heart and soul is like magic. It's what we call the unseen magic that moves people to buy, moves people to make decisions, moves people to act, moves people to respond. Heart and soul? Wow. Next, personality. You've just got to spruce up and sharpen up your own personality. You've got plenty of personality. Just get it developed to where it's effective every day. It's effective no matter who you talk to, whether it's a child or whether it's a business person, whether it's a rich person, poor person. A unique personality that is at home anywhere. My mentor Bailey taught me, you got to learn to be at home, Mr. Rohn, in a little shack in Kentucky, having a beer and watching the fights with Winfred, my old friend, and be just as comfortable there as you are in a Georgian mansion in Washington, D.C. at the senator's guest. Just as comfortable, move with ease, whether it's with the rich or whether it's with the poor. And it makes no difference to you who's rich or who's poor. A chance to have a unique relationship with whoever. That kind of personality that's comfortable, that kind of personality that's not bent out of shape. Here's the ultimate investment, charisma. Ultimate sophistication, charisma. With a touch of humility. All of that list is more valuable than money. With $1 and the list I just gave you, the world is yours. I mean, it belongs to you. Whatever piece of it you desire, whatever development you wish for your life, I've given you the secret. Capital, there is some kind of capital and there is some kind of capital. But here's what you can do with $1 and the rest of this investment of yourself and your person. You can secure your fortune. Key phrase, you lack not the resources. You don't lack the mental resources. You don't lack the financial resources. Here's the key to the dollar. Depends on where you invest it. Depends on where you spend it. Buy a Coca-Cola or buy a brochure about a product you believe in and go tell the story. I mean, what are you going to do with this dollar? You say, well, it's only $1. No, you don't understand. You can, if you wish, you can turn it instead of into a Coca-Cola, you could turn it into capital. And $1 turned into capital instead of a Coca-Cola, what's the difference? The difference is a fortune. The Coca-Cola is soon gone, but the fortune lasts forever. Everybody's got the money. It depends on where you put it. How much is a book on sophistication in the marketplace? Somebody says $25. That's too much for poor people. No. $25 is how many Pepsis? If you saved up the money of 25 Pepsis, could you buy a book on sophistication in the marketplace that can lead to fortune? The answer is yes. Everybody's got the money. Everybody's got the time. Everybody's got the imagination and the mental and the spiritual and the social resources. Everybody's got the stuff. It depends on how you use it and where you put it and where you invest it, how it turns out for you and for your life. That's the key.
This is the end of this disc. The program continues on the next CD.